How we doing, everybody? Welcome back here to another edition of the Soft Dump in the Corner, presented to you, of course, by North 6 Sports. Today, episode number 25. We made it to the quarter century mark.
Whoop, whoop.
Give ourselves a clap on that one, little golf clap. Thank you, folks, for everybody checking in. Everyone staying tuned, everyone following along. We really appreciate that. Alongside, of course, today we got Luke Pendlebury. How you doing?
What's going on, everybody? I am ready to talk hockey. I was stuck on the old 400 in Toronto, Ontario for God knows how long, so I am ready to get going here.
Just the worst. I mean, for anybody that doesn't understand the traffic when you sit in the 400, it's just like you're sitting there, you might as well just read a book, right?
You're going nowhere.
Nothing going on. All you can smell is fumes and trucks, loud music, shitty cars that sound like a bunch of fart horns running beside you there.
Yep. It's the worst.
It's one of those things. And not to mention, too, I mean, you got to go to the washroom or something. Maybe you got to take a dump or something like that, and you're just sitting there and you're impatient as hell. Sliding in and out of traffic. Just the worst.
It's almost like it happened today.
Just the worst. Just the
It
worst.
is the worst.
Tell everybody how you feel.
Oh God, it was great to get home in time, but it's just not a good feeling. You're stuck in one area, you can't even get off. There's no cutoffs, and you're just sweating your brains out and just hoping for the best. You look at your time, ETA, and it says 40 minutes, and you're just like, oh dear Lord, I don't know if I'm gonna make it, and my car seat might take an absolute beating.
Just sitting there looking like it's 6 degrees outside. Why am I sweating so much right now?
There's no workout in this car. What's going on here?
Yeah, I didn't bring my Peloton with me in my car.
Yeah, how's this working right now?
I love it. All right, folks, let's get right into it here. So hockey is about 10 days in. As we all know, the season is still fresh, of course, but we've got a small sample size that we can run off of, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Look at a few teams. We'll talk about a few things here. We got a list, a couple surprises, a few things that jumped out to us. You're in for a good one here, folks. We're going to talk about a few players. We're going to look at potentially talking about Patty Kane here looking forward. We're going to look at a few of the season highlights in terms of what's coming up. Go over a few of the division winners, a few other options like that. So stay tuned. Oh, excuse me. Just had a nice little burp there. It just got the best of me on that one. All right. So jumping into it here right away. Let's look at some of the early surprises. So again, emphasizing the word early on that one, we completely understand. Like I said, some teams have only played 2 games. Some teams have played 4 games. We are very early into this, and we completely understand that. What has stood out to you in terms of early surprises, whether that's team, whether that's certain player, whether that's, headline at all? What stood out to you, 1 or 2 things right away to begin the season?
Yeah, I got a couple players actually in mind that's kind of like jumped the gun early, and my first one was Alex DeBrincat. I know we talked offline a bit about him moving over to Detroit in his first year, getting that opportunity to play on that top line alongside Dylan Larkin. I think he's exceeded expectations as of yet. He's played only 4 games, but he's got 8 points, and that's leading the league in the NHL. So, like I said, we're 4 games in. But to find your rhythm early on a new team is very beneficial, especially for like an upcoming Detroit Red Wings team, and just another check mark on the old Yzer plan. So can't wait to see what this guy can finish with, and see where Detroit ends up in the standings too. So he's a good player to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I like that one. I don't know. It's one of those things with that player. He doesn't necessarily, I gotta word this properly, do it for me. I certainly like what he brings. I think that he can be a good asset. But for me, he's always been that second ride player. When you look at the likes of Detroit, as you just touched on, the Yzer plan, I've mentioned it several times before in this podcast. I've mentioned it several times before just offline. I love anything that guy does. It's like whatever he touches turns into gold. I think he really has a good eye for the game. He has a good concept of putting a team together and what the importance of team dynamic, team leadership, what the dressing room can commit to, you name it. I just think that he does a really good job with that. So going back to DeBrincat as a whole, it looks solid, right? The first couple games, I was able to watch 2 or 3 games, kind of skipping back and forth. Shout out NHL Game Package. You are a lifesaver when it comes to that. I love being able to sit there and watch, 5-6 games a night. We got a big round of games on the slate tonight. I think there's 10 hockey games tonight, so we'll really be able to get a good look at a lot of the teams and what they're sort of starting to portray now. Just quickly wrapping up on DeBrincat. Guy can rip the puck. That's the one
Oh
thing that
yeah.
he's always been able to do. He's been a goal scorer through and through, whether he's playing with the likes of Chicago, playing with Patty Kane. Obviously, last year was a little bit of an off season there. Certainly wanting a change of scenery, which can be understood. Gets what he wants and gets to go home and play home in Detroit there, or close to home, I should say, as you touched on with the likes of Dylan Larkin, speedy wingers. They brought in a lot of good players for that team. Moritz Seider as well as a player that can really help move the puck, especially on the power play. So, yeah, I do really like that. It's nice to see that they're doing well. And just Detroit as a whole is kind of looking like they're taking that step forward this season.
Yeah, and my other player, young player, steps in the league this year is Logan Cooley. I'm sure everyone's seen his highlight reel when he was over in Australia. Nasty, nasty, nasty goal. But now he's in the regular season. He's a point per game, 3 points, 3 games. He's still looking for that first career goal, but it's just nice to finally see him in the NHL. I know he had unfinished business in Minnesota, University of Minnesota, to get that championship, but I was hearing that maybe Clayton Keller was talking into him coming back into the NHL, make his debut, and start his career as a professional. So this is great for the organization of Arizona. A lot of young guns, Dylan Gunther, Barrett Hayden, and now they got Logan Cooley. So they should be taking the next step in the next couple of years as the pieces are starting to come together for them.
Yeah, like it. I like everything about that. Minus Mullet Arena. I'm not a big fan of them
Yeah,
still
well,
still playing in a college arena, but I mean, truth be told, at the end of the day, it's just hockey. It's still played on ice. It's still played on,
yeah,
in the same dimension, so to speak. So nothing's going to make a difference on that. They still got to play those games out.
yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, Cooley looks really solid. I know, obviously, too, folks, if you have listened to our Bold Predictions podcast, Luke here obviously made the bold prediction. Of course, albeit bold prediction, we understand that they're just shots in the dark. We're not sitting here telling you that they are absolutely going to,
Yeah.
hit. But if you did want to make that bet, we strongly encourage it because we know what we're talking about.
The guy comments
You
on there
mentioned
going,
Cooley as a whole. Yeah, exactly. You mentioned Cooley as a whole being an option for Rookie of the Year. I would argue there's probably maybe 2, 3, 4 candidates at most that are up there. We talked about, of course, Bedard. Have you heard of him? Logan Cooley, of course, being there. And, of course, maybe Luke Hughes. Some of those guys that have already been out. And Matthew Nyes is my fourth as well.
yeah,
That are kind of basically NHL ready and or have already played some games, right? So the rookie outputs as a whole, I mean, you're starting to see a lot of these kids just kind of step right into the league. A lot of them being able to really transition that speed and skill game better than they ever have before. I don't want to sit here and say it's not a man's game anymore because that's not the right way of putting it. But the aggression in terms of the hitting and the physicality of the game, it's
is less.
slowly starting to remove itself, which is, from a fan's perspective, you get to see your star players healthy. You get to see your star players portraying that skill, stick handling, quick puck work, shooting the puck, skating. To me, and I'm sure you agree with it, there's nothing better than waking up. Let me draw you a picture here. Christmas morning, you're right, or Christmas evening. It's fucking Christmas Eve. You put out the milk and cookies. Everybody has their big dinner, the turkey. You're eating the best. You're eating snacks. Everyone's all excited. Christmas Eve, you go to sleep as a kid. Maybe you hear Santa and the fucking reindeer walking on the roof, and you wake up. What's sitting underneath that tree? Don Cherry Rock'em Sock'em.
Oh, I got coal. That's weird.
Yeah, because you're a bad kid.
Oh,
You look at Don Cherry's, and I'm just referencing strictly, like, you wake up and you fire that right into the DVD or the VHS. I know maybe all you new listeners, if we do have some younger kids out there, you're sitting
no
there looking
idea.
like, who are these guys? My point being is you load that up and you just get so fired up on the hits, the goals, everything was just so different back then. It's hockey that we grew up listening to. It's hockey that I wish was still here. Don't get me wrong. I love watching the skill and the talent and sitting there being able to say, I get to watch McDavid in his prime. I got to watch Crosby play his entire career, Ovechkin play his entire career. But
Patty
nowadays, when you
Kane.
look at sorry?
Patty Kane.
Patty Kane, exactly. A perfect
Yeah.
example, right? Just the guy that came in was just like, okay, I'm so beyond the talent and the skill set that a lot of these players are, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just the way that the game has changed, and just my overall point here is that a lot of kids nowadays, or a lot of young prospects, it doesn't matter the age, whether they're coming in at 19 or some prospects coming into the league at 22, 23, 24 after they played a few full seasons in the college, or played a couple of years to just get ready for the league. They're really starting to just transition a lot easier. You don't have that physicality, you don't have that worrisome that my young players are going to get injured, that type of feel. And it's just a little bit different, right? So you're starting to see a lot of young players really start producing right out of the bat,
Yeah.
which goes exactly to my point of money. And that
Mm-hmm.
is one of the biggest reasons you are now seeing all of these big contracts thrown out toward the end of
Right away.
ELCs. You're not seeing many bridge deals. A lot of these kids are getting paid heavy, heavy dollar values right off the start. And to me, it's just wrong. I don't think that you should be able to do that. I think you should have to earn your keep. I think that you should have to be able to sit there and justify those numbers. Um, but I know I kind of went on a bit of a spiel there, and I apologize for that. Kind of just coming full circle. A lot of these rookies are starting to really, you know, do so well immediately, just because, not to say the league is easier, but the league is more adjusted for them to come in and be effective right away.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
so for me personally, I love watching these young players, but I think that we also have to remember where we came from, and we got to really appreciate some of those hard-nosed hockey teams still, because that's where you really end up winning, is in the playoffs with that style of play, right? Look at the
Yep.
last few Stanley Cup champions, going back to even, call it roughly a little bit before the Ovechkin Cup in 2018,
Yep.
where that's kind of, now you're starting to see it slide a little bit more from the skill. But Vegas last year, right? Big, heavy, strong team that
Oh
still
yeah.
won it. So it's tough. A lot of these young
Yeah.
teams are going to need to adjust and really learn still. But I still think today's day and age is more skilled than we ever seen, right?
Absolutely. I agree.
Early surprises otherwise for you. I was going to go off and just kind of say just a couple players off the top of my head here. Um, I like the way that Malkin's really reset the clock.
Yep.
Truthfully, he's come out of the gates. He's obviously healthy, which is a big factor for them. Pittsburgh being the oldest team in the league. I think I saw a stat on ESPN the first night they played Chicago. I think their average age was something like 30.6 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like 30, 31 years old or something,
It's crazy.
which is pretty old when you think about it. Back in the old day, that was the average team, right? You get a
Yeah,
lot of
no.
grizzled vets, and you'd play 3, 4 years in the AHL before you even got a look, unless you were
Yep.
a first rounder, right? So that's nice to see. That he's firing off at all cylinders. Leaf fans, of course, I know you're gonna like this. I think Willie Nylander's looked really solid.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong here on Willie Nylander. Do you find that he looks like he's acting like the dog there nowadays? So what
I
I'm trying to say by that, and I'll let you go off, is when he's got the puck, it almost looks like he doesn't want to pass it. It looks like he wants everything to run through him, which is fine. No problem. If you're going to produce, if you're going to do that, but you got to make sure you give it at both ends, right? We've
Yep.
talked about that endlessly with William Nylander. He's got all the talent in the world, but physicality and not being able to give it at both ends is really killing him. I
Yeah.
just wanted to see from your opinion, have you noticed just his overall kind of play right now? It seems like, and not to say Matthews and Marner aren't existing, but it just seems literally like William Nylander, when he's out on the ice, like he's the only one that can touch the puck. And if you don't get it, then I want it back.
Yeah. It's almost like he's playing for a contract.
You wouldn't say, would you? Huh?
Yeah. So
Going
no, I
back to
agree.
that, going back to that money talk that we just had, huh?
No, I agree with you though. Like Willie's, he looks like he's taking another step in his game, and a few things that I even noticed too is like, and a lot of the time people are giving the issues like, oh, he's weak, he doesn't go in the corners, like he's not gonna fight for his puck. Man, I've seen him in the corners every game fighting for that puck. Scored in a few highlight reels that I think we've all seen. But you're right. Like I just feel like he's taken that next step. Like I think I talked to you or someone else. I said like this kid's gonna score 45 goals this year, and he's probably gonna get that $10.5 million contract that he wants. Which now you're gonna really upload. Yeah, either that he walks. Tree living, I don't know if you can figure something out with that, but at the end of the day, I know I 100% agree with you. I think he's taking that next step. Like, I'm going to play as the guy this year, and I would not even be surprised one bit if he scores 45 goals this year.
So I'll ask you a question then.
Yep.
Do you think that Willie Nylander playing this way and understanding his situation, like you just touched on, contract year,
Yep.
wants to be the guy, understands he's worth a value? Do you think he's putting on this display or trying to play this particular way to earn that contract elsewhere? And I mean that, and the question that I ask is, if he's showing all these other teams that, I can be that guy, I can be the driver of a line, I can be, your 1A, 1B type player, I can earn that $10 million. But, I'm just telling you right now, if you need a number one guy to come into your team, I can be that guy. You think he's playing that way? Or do you just think that simply he's coming to a confidence level and just is ready to just kind of finally say, you know what, screw you guys. I'm kind of over this whole Toronto's too big for me. Toronto's too big of a market. I can't do this. I can't do that. Like maybe he's just simply looking at this now and just saying like, you know what, screw you guys. I'm going to go out and play the way I want to play. I'm going to be effective. I'm going to be one of the best players on the ice. If you don't want to pay me my money, I'll just simply walk.
No, it's a bit of both for me. And what I've been hearing is I think Willie wants to stay as a Leaf. I think he's been there for his whole career, and I think he really loves playing in Toronto. But like we just talked about, it's like a 10 million, 10.5 million cap hit. Like, sure, the cap goes up the next few years, but like you can't really, there's no promise that it's going to be up enough where you'll be able to afford all these big names. Tavares being, off the books in a couple years, does he take less money? I would hope so. He's getting way too much money for what he does right now. But yeah, I think if you're not gonna be able to afford it, then there's gonna be teams calling Tree Living, being like, "Hey, we want this guy. Like, what are you looking to? What's the offer? What's on the table?" Kind of thing, because he can be a number one anywhere for most teams, at least.
Yeah, he could play on the first line. I'm not convinced he'd be their number one for most
First line.
teams.
Sorry, that's what I meant. First line.
But just to put into perspective too, as you made the great point of Tavares' contract, like, okay, yeah, they're losing $11 million in 2 years, but come next season, if Nylander wants this extension, or he's going to be making roughly $3 million more than what he is right now if he gets to close to 10 or gets his 10.
Sure.
Marner's going to be over that 10. Matthews goes up to 13 next year.
13.25.
Right? And then on their back end, they've already got Riley making all that money there. Like
7
they
or
don't
8
even
maybe.
have the money to pay him in that terms. Nobody's going to take on that Tavares contract anyways, right? So, and even too, I was having this conversation is Nylander could technically look at it in two different ways. He could say, hey, I want $10 million. I'm going to prove it to the team that drafted me. And I want you, excuse me, I want you to pay me the money that I am. I'm a drafted player. But you could look at a different perspective too. And I use it as like the Stamkos rule was back in the day when the Leafs were going extremely hard at getting Stamkos. They had Canadian Tire throw their marks at. They had Sport Check throw everything at him. They were saying, oh, you're going to be the biggest, baddest player in the league, this, and that. Stamkos went and signed back in Tampa, won 2 cups, 3 cups, finals, etc. But the thing I'm making my point across here is that Nylander could go out and sign somewhere with, shout out Biz, no state tax. He could go out and sign at a place that's 8.5, 9.5, give or take. And he'll actually end up taking home more money than he would have if he played in Toronto. Another reason why a lot of people don't understand, I'm sure Matthews understands that he's worth his value, but I also think he understands if I'm bringing home 13 million just on paper, I'm really only bringing home about $10 million, which is less than a majority of the stars in the league. And I'm just as good, if not better.
If that. Yeah.
Right. So that's one thing with a lot of these Canadian markets. A lot of people don't understand is they get taxed a lot differently here. And if they really want to make the money, that they can go elsewhere. right? There's a lot of teams elsewhere that, like I said, they don't need to necessarily touch the $10 figure on the cap hit for him to make more money in that particular market. He'll play the
Mm-hmm.
same amount of minutes. He'll likely get the same production because he'll still be playing with star players regardless. And then, like I said, it's one of those things where maybe Nylander is simply just showcasing himself this year, knowing that he's likely going to be walking next year because he
Mm-hmm.
can't afford to take another deal short of less than that this year, in the hopes that he's then next year's contract he plays and wins that one out too, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting too, because like, what if like Matthew Nyes turns out to be the player everyone thinks 2 years down the road? That's another deal you got to look into, another big forward. So like, Treliving's gonna have a lot on his hands. It's gonna be insane.
Technically speaking, though, with Knives, and correct me if I'm wrong, he only played what 7 games last year. So
Oh, so he didn't even
that's
crack it.
not, he
Yep.
didn't burn his first year of his ELC. So
True.
technically speaking, this
True.
is his first year of the ELC entry level contract,
Yeah.
which means that technically speaking, Nyes would be signed this year, next year, and the year after.
Okay. So
So
year
in 4
three.
years, he's going to be
Yeah.
signing an extension, which
Yeah.
is good news for Toronto
Yeah.
because
Because
now
that.
they're already in win now mode. They need as the most amount of value
Mhm.
contracts that they could possibly get, right?
Yeah.
So that is a good thing
Absolutely.
with Nyes, and you make the good point that he's gonna hopefully be able to step into that role in the top six, forward group for the Leafs there, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
I think he's gonna be on that second line tonight. They moved Domi down, put him on that second line. So we'll see what happens.
which I hate. I'm not a big fan of the way that they've treated Domi and Bertuzzi so far, giving them like they're dogging their minutes. They're kind of guys that you need in the lineup. Truthfully, you can't just sit there and say, "Hey, I need value out of you. Go be productive and get 12 minutes a night, no power play time." You're
Mm-hmm.
sitting, they don't play penalty kill either. So it's like when
Yeah.
you're like, okay, we're going to send out our guys roughly 2 to 3 power plays a night, 4 or 5 minutes a game, where they're out there for the whole power play essentially, and then
Yeah.
they'll play PK. It's like
It's
you're
true.
playing a shift, waiting 2 3 minutes, playing a shift, might wait 4 or 5 minutes. Like I don't like the way that they're doing that right now. I think they're not putting enough trust into them. And I think that goes a long way to the way that Keefe wants to coach this team too, right? Because he already knows the way most of those guys can play and
Yeah.
trust them. And I'm not sure that he's given that Domi and Bertuzzi a fair shake as of right now, but that's something
Early.
we got to look at. Like I said, we're 3 games in. They're playing their
Yeah.
fourth game tonight. That's something that maybe we'll talk a bit more about come the 10 game mark on how that's kind of all been shaked out and played out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as of right now, I think that they've got to let some more hands, let some more mouths feed, so to speak. Um, Sticking with them, just super quick. Matthews obviously back-to-back hat tricks. That's obviously going to stick out. I think we saw he scored 15% of his goals, something like that, in the first 3 games or something like that. Like that's incredible. It looks good for him. A lot of people forget last year he started the year with an injured wrist. That doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously healthy this year. He's got what looks to be playing with a little bit of an edge, which is super nice. In terms of just overall goal scoring, though, there's a lot of players like Besser hitting 4 goals, a lot of 2 goal games, quite a few hat tricks going around right now.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on scoring going up? I know I kind of briefly talked about it at the beginning of the podcast here, but where do we think that the season's going to end with goal scores? Do you think we're going to see more than 450 goal scores this year, or what?
Yeah, we had a lot last year. Even like just point totals in general, there was a lot more 100+ point guys than we usually see. I like tons of goals. Obviously, it makes it exciting. But you make a great point. Like the physicality of the game has obviously gone down. I do miss that aspect. I mean, with Reeves in the lineup and getting to see a lot of Toronto games, we get to see some of the physicality and him fighting. Arbor Jacki fought Marcus Foligno. But it's nice to see some fighting. But just in general, I enjoy the goal scoring. I always like guys just going off the rails, like McDavid getting 153 points last year, and even Draisaitl getting 128, not taking home one award is insane. If you put that on any other season prior, he probably would have won everything. So I think it's just going to go up and up and up. It just seems like because the skill coming in today's age is just getting better and better, and it's a faster game too. So, but do miss the physicality from time to time, though, like you said.
Yeah, like Leon Draisaitl, who guy
Yeah,
putting
I
up,
know. It's a
guy
big
basically
shadow.
almost pretty well good for 50 goals a year, 110, 120 points a year. Just
Yeah.
no one talks about him. Oh, and
Nope.
don't forget, he makes
Yeah,
$8.5 million.
that's ridiculous.
Like,
How many years
talk
left?
about,
1, 2?
sorry?
1 or 2 left on that deal?
Yeah, this year and next. So, like, talk about a guy that's going to get a raise.
Oh
I'm a
my
little
god.
worried as an Oilers fan, truthfully, because McDavid and Draisaitl are both up next year. They're both going to demand a raise, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Um, will they both see 15? I don't know. Hopefully, the dollar value of the cap does happen to go up. Um, I'm going to go out on a limb here and just simply say, in terms of Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, do not be shocked if they take cap hits, or if they take less on their cap hit, right? They take a cut. The way that they've conducted their interviews and spoken highly about the team, about the organization, about where they live, about who they play with. Big
Yeah.
deal when you're playing with the best player in the world. And I'm sure Connor also sees very comparably to saying, if I really screw myself here and I decide to walk, am I really going to get to play with a Leon Draisaitl? Right? Everyone's saying,
Mhm.
oh, he'll go to the Leafs. He'll go to the Leafs. How the fuck's he going to go to the Leafs? They're paying $45 million between three players. You can't
Yeah.
add a $15 million cap hit to that, too. So it's
Yeah.
like the situation sits really well for the Oilers to keep both of those guys.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked, man. If you know what? They rightfully deserve 15. They probably both deserve 20. But as a whole,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if they take that Boston Bruins approach and say, listen, we've both made already, respectively, like 60 and $70 million or so before I re-sign my next contract for 90 more million. I'm pretty sure I'd be satisfied with $150 million career earnings, but I would not be satisfied if my cups amount to zero.
Big donut.
Right? That's my point. Like, I think that at this point they want to win. So I wouldn't be surprised. Another
Where would you have him
conversation
come in
for,
at?
sorry?
Where would you have him come in at? A, B?
See, that's tough. I mean, I'm no
Yeah.
NHL GM here, but you got to expect they got to be within top 5 each in the league. They've produced
Oh,
that way. They act that way, right?
yeah.
Single-handedly. A lot of people joke and say, well, Draisaitl wouldn't be that good without McDavid. Hello, people. If you watch a little bit more Oilers games, hot take, McDavid wouldn't be as good without Draisaitl. I'll tell
Yeah.
you that sure as shit right now. He
Yep.
wouldn't put up 150 points without Draisaitl. If
No,
it
I
was
agree.
just McDavid and the Chicago Blackhawks roster, he wouldn't be putting up 153 points. I'm sorry.
Man, man, when McDavid went down with that injury, Leon won the Hart. Like he still produced. So it's like I don't know what people's problem are when they argue that.
Just negligent. That's all it is, right? He
Yep.
plays a very different style. He plays very much like Yager did back in the day. Yager didn't get the credit he deserved either.
Yep.
Right? He was playing with Mario and he was playing with some of the other best, Paul Coffey on the back end, right? It all was like, oh, well, they're not as good just because they play with all these good players. It's like,
Yeah.
come on, come on. Anyways,
Yeah.
that's a different conversation for another time. I'm sure, like I said, we'll get into that come that time and sort of get into a little bit deeper on, maybe what we think for numbers, and hopefully from an Oilers perspective, I don't have to deal with the stresses of those two potentially leaving the Oilers. I would cry and burn all my jerseys. Um, but kind of just briefly, why don't we just finish up while we're kind of on that conversation of the Oilers? 0-2 start. They had a big win to go 1-2. I don't know if you caught what Evander Kane said in his interview the other day.
Oh, I
Somebody
did.
asked him, in case anybody doesn't recognize what I'm mentioning here, Evander Kane, winger for the Oilers, was asked, how are you guys are in the dressing room right now? Like, you're down 0-2. Like, you guys better get going. This could be a big deal. And Kane laughed and he had a perfect response. He goes, man, we're last in the league. Like, the world is ending. Right?
Yeah,
Like, it's just to
so
say,
good.
like, slow down. We're
Yeah.
2 damn games in. And
Yeah,
then he
no.
obviously goes and he says, we could be 500 in our next 2 games. Like, chill out. Right?
Yeah.
Um, here's one for you that's a little bit more surprising. Just kind of talking about other slow teams for starts. Seattle Kraken 0-4.
I know, man.
right? So that's
That's
another team that I
interesting.
think is going to get on the horse sooner than later. They got too much talent. They're too good to be, low seed in the bottom of the league. Even Buffalo, I feel like they've only scored 6 goals in 3 games. They're due to break out. You know what I mean? Like, Tage
Right.
Thompson, Tuck,
Zero.
Skinner, Cousins, those guys, Darlene, Power on the back end. A lot of those guys, they haven't been producing very well. So,
Yeah.
you know, just from experience, folks, if you do have Buffalo Sabres players, please don't drop them too early in the season
I was gonna
because you
mention
just
it.
you just never know. You just never know when a Buffalo Sabre is going to go off for close to 50 goals and close to 90 points. I know from experience. I dropped Tage Thompson last year after about 7 games when he had 1 or 2 points. Hang on to your Buffalo Sabres in your fantasy leagues. I promise they will turn around.
That's funny. You're
That's all I
lucky. I
want
was
to say
gonna
on
make a
that one
joke.
there.
Ah,
Um, Speaking of the Buffalo Sabres, this is a tasty little tot that I'm going to throw out here for you. We mentioned Patty Kane, PK88. You think he could be a good fit with Buffalo? Or where would you see him coming back if he were to come back around Christmas time, roughly, I think is where they have it targeted? Where
yeah.
could you see Patty Kane signing?
I think there's only a few options, and the ones that have been kind of swirling around the news is either Buffalo, New York, or Detroit. Obviously, Buffalo's home for him. Whether it's a good fit or not, I mean, the guy's a legend. He's won 3 cups. He's done legit everything you could possibly name of. To just bring him home, I'm sure they can find a fit for him. Obviously, depending on what kind of value you're going to give him, and I don't think that the actual term is going to be too much as he's getting a lot older. But he'd be such a good fit there in terms of being a good locker room guy. You would fill the stadiums are. I don't know if they're getting filled, but I mean, with a good upcoming team, it's starting to get filled. But if you bring Patrick Kane onto that roster, jersey sales are going to go crazy. The stadium should be filling with the legend in your lineup. Whether or not they make playoffs, I have a sneaky suspicion they may, and he may be a good fit for that team to go in the playoffs. As like I said, he's got 3 rings and he knows what it takes and what he's got to get the locker room to be in order to win 4 rounds in the playoffs to hoist Lord Stanley. So, Detroit, I don't know. They got to solidify their top 6. You could put them on that wing. You just don't know what you're gonna get from Patrick Kane either. Like after all that surgery, like are you gonna get the same Patrick Kane that you got in Chicago? I have no idea. So obviously it's a risk. He was a little slow in New York, but that was probably because he needed surgery. But those are my 3 teams. But I would say Buffalo if I was a betting man.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I'm going to go off the board here. I really wouldn't be surprised if he just kind of said, well, first thing you got to realize too is the later that he signs in the end of the league, the less he's going to make
Yeah,
theoretically. So if it's a 1 year deal type of deal, he might come in and, play for maybe not a league minimum, but kind of close to a league minimum slot, so to speak.
yeah,
He could even look into signing comparable to what Connor Brown signed with the Oilers and just be more of incentives. But certain team might be able to push that salary cap toward next season type of deal. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to a team that's like ready. Could just be like a third liner, kind of a second power play type of guy. I don't see him going to, a team that he's going to be playing top 6 minutes. I wouldn't be shocked, truthfully, if he goes to a team like Carolina, right? If he goes to a team like Tampa Bay, I linked him to Tampa Bay last year. I really think that he's got to go to a team that he's not going to be relied on offensively or defensively, but he's going to be able to fit in exactly the way that they need him to.
yeah,
Um, a team that's going to be good defensively. I think Carolina, obviously, they've got one of the best defensive groups in the entire league. I think
yeah,
Carolina is going to be a good underrated slot for him. I feel like there's always ways teams can make money, money appear, so to speak. Maybe there's injuries, that type of deal. Maybe someone goes on LTIR again for a 3rd season because they're injured. And we see them come back for game 1. Shout out Kucherov. Shout out Mark Stone. Um, and just do something like that just to kind of bend the rules a bit. But I really do think Patty Kane will come back, on a solid team. I'd like to see him be successful. He's good for the league. He's good for the marketing of the league. He brings attention to the league. It'd be a Cinderella story, obviously, if he does come back to Buffalo and they have success, especially in the playoffs. But
yeah.
I'd be interested to see where that does end up for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Okay, so looking ahead here, so we've got at the end of this month here, some of the big some of the things coming around the league. We got Oilers Flames Stadium Series. Of course, we do have the outdoor game, the Kraken versus the Knights, the last two franchises to join the league. What's your take on outdoor games? What's your take on Stadium Series? Do you think it's a scam? Do you think it's one of those things? I know you've been to one, so I wanted you to kind of explain your thoughts and processes of, what it's like to go there, how the viewing is, how the experience is. Talk the listeners through what it's like to go through that and what you think about the league having, 4 to 5, 5 to 6. I
Yeah.
think they've got, if I'm correct, and I might be wrong, I think there's 5 games this year that they're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that, and walk us
Yeah.
through that experience?
Yeah, I've been to a few actually. I've been to one Winter Classic and I've been to 2 Stadium Series. So I went to, funny enough, not even close to where I live, but I went to the Dallas Nashville Winter Classic. That one was probably the best in terms of, like experience. It was a lot of fun. You wouldn't think a Dallas Nashville game would be like, crazy just because of the warm weather and whatnot. It was still like Celsius. It was probably like, I don't know, 15, 16 degrees. Like it was still like, moderate weather. We had really good seats. A friend of ours got seats through someone. Shout out to Biz. He was about 3 rows ahead of us. I couldn't get to him, but we were in the middle of the row. But
Could you
a
see
lot of
past his
fun.
big nose?
Yeah, exactly. They had like a big like festival outside, lots to do, lots of games to play. You could get drinks. It was jammed, and this is a college stadium. This was like the Cotton Bowl Stadium, I think it's called. I could be completely wrong, but where they play the Cotton Bowl, and it holds like 100,000 people. This is the one where all the memes are coming around where Corey Perry got like ejected from the game like the first 5 minutes and he had to do the big walk of shame. It was kind of funny. I got to see that. Um, the other ones I went to a Leafs Buffalo one in Toronto. I froze my ass off the minute O'Canada started, and I just like, you know what? The seats were good, and I appreciate the invite because I didn't have to pay for the tickets. But my God, dude, I froze my nuts off for 2.5 hours, and like all you're thinking about is trying to stay warm rather than actually seeing the game. So I don't know, a little it was not frustrating, but it was not as good of an experience as maybe the Dallas one, where like you're comfortable in the weather and you can really sit down and enjoy the hockey game. And then the other one we went to is Washington, Toronto, in Washington. Same kind of thing. It was cold, maybe not as cold as the Leaf one, but you had to have really good seats there in order to like really enjoy the experience. If you're really close, all you're gonna see is the boards. You might see some helmets, so to watch it on TV is probably better. But my overall opinion in it is like the rarity of it is it's starting to come a lot common. If you're putting 5, 6 of these games out here, they're not really that special anymore. I think you got to just have the one on New Year's Day. Everyone looks forward to each year, rotated between teams. But when you start to put 5, 6, 7 of these out in the NHL, I get it. It's a moneymaker. You can put bands in the first period and really sell the tickets at more than normal. But at the end of the day, I think you're just losing the rarity of it if you're just doing,
Jerseys.
yeah,
Jerseys too.
jersey sales. So at the end of the day, I think you're ruining the specialty of it if you're putting out 6 of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, you make a lot of good points. I'm not sure if you just saw the other day, actually, NBA player Kyle Kuzma. He came out and talked about basically just the NBA constantly filtering through jerseys and how you've lost the nostalgic kind of feel of the original jerseys and, keeping the brand, so to speak. I couldn't find that more, truthful, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you look at all these jerseys nowadays, every team wears about 5 to 6 different jerseys in a year. Every year they've got, you know, stadium series, and then they've got outdoor game thing, and then they've got fucking camo jerseys, and then they've got Pride Night jerseys, and then they've got, the
There's
list
just a
goes
lot of
on and
jerseys.
on and
Yeah,
on. And it's
yeah.
like now all of a sudden you've got so many different jerseys. They might wear them, once a year and never even bring them back and stuff. It's like the NHL's just sitting there licking their chops on these jerseys, making so much money. Players probably don't get any of it in the NHL. To me, I just don't like it. It's like, you know what? I don't mind a jersey getting changed in terms of maybe some color or the design or so, like every now and then, just to kind of keep it relative. Maybe they change their logo up a little bit. That's a little bit different, but I just find today's day and age, you're just seeing so many different jerseys, so many different styles, patterns, everything. I just don't like the look of everything. And I mean, again, some of them, they look really sharp and they're really cool, but I just wish that they would just stick with the basics, right? Stick with just with what works, right?
Yeah. No, I
Um,
agree.
so just moving forward here, I wanted to just kind of touch base on it. We talked about briefly just with, a couple of the divisions and maybe a few surprises, what we were kind of looking at. I know it's still very early. We're only, like I said, roughly 10 days into the season. We're still in the middle of October here. It's not even yet Halloween. What's your take on, division winners? I know you and I kind of had a touch on that over the last few episodes and sort of touched on that. Who do you think right now, if you were to just take four winners, just one team, right? Nothing fancy as a whole. Who do you take as your four winners early on? And of course, that can change. Injuries can happen. Teams can make a jump. Trade deadline still yet to come. We are literally 80 games left. What's your
Mm.
early take? Who you kind of are you sticking with your guns? Are you changing? What's your take?
Well, my degenerate gambling self, I actually put a parlay on division winners, so I'll just spit this one out as I have it. My four winners: Atlantic, I got Toronto. Metro, I actually have New Jersey. Central, I have Dallas, and Pacific, I have Edmonton. And I think these four teams, maybe despite some of them having slow starts, like we said, tons of hockey left. They're so deep, top to bottom. So I still just wouldn't be surprised if these guys could just make a quick push and then they won't look back and get that division win and give me some money.
Yeah, just have a little tush push, right? Like the Eagles.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's so tough. I'm not going to sit here and say, I have exactly the same idea on that one. I still think the Atlantic is one of the only ones that's up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Something, it's just something about that Leafs defense and goaltending that just kind of throws me for a spin. I'm not sure how I feel about them, truthfully.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's also worth noting, and it's scary how good Boston is again already this season. I know that they've only played, I think, 2 games in, and I think what do they play against Chicago and Nashville. So it's not like we're sitting here saying they beat the cream of the crop, but for them to be 2-0, their defense looks incredibly solid. Allmark and Swayman have both played very respectable games. I think they have a +3 goal differential. If I saw, I think they're 6-4, 3 against. So like I said, they're continuing that same trend of, outscoring and really keeping their goals against, 3 goals against in only 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
That's a scary team to watch out for. Something tells me though that, and I said it before, something tells me that Tampa Bay is not done. I don't know what it is. I want you to take that stupid smirk off your face because I know how much you like them. Something tells me they've got that piss and vinegar there still, but it's not like they've lost anything. Kucherov's there, points producing there. Stamkos is ripping biscuit early, which is a great sign because he's playing
Yeah.
pissed off that he doesn't have a contract. Hedman
Mm-hmm.
and Sergachev look dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
If their goaltending can just simply be average. We've talked about being average with Colorado winning the cup. We've talked about past couple teams winning the cup with just average goaltending. If they can just be average until Vasilevsky comes back and he can come back and be healthy and be dominant, who's to say they can't win that one? Of course, Toronto's going to be up there. I've got Carolina still. I think I took them originally. I'm still taking Carolina over New Jersey
Mm-hmm.
to win the Metro. In terms of
Fair.
that
Mm-hmm.
Central Division, I still have Colorado. They look damn good.
Yeah, they do look good. Yeah.
Damn good this year, man. They added a lot of key pieces, very
Yeah.
underrated pieces in that depth there, which I think is going to be really strong. I am going to change my Pacific pick. I did have the Oilers winning the Pacific.
Yeah,
I
Vegas.
think Vegas is going to win that Pacific
They're
division.
so gross right now.
They're 4-0 to start. I'm trying not to be biased looking at where they are in the standings. I just think of what they have: a healthy Jack Eichel, a healthy Mark Stone, elite defenseman on the back end. I think Aiden Hill's settled into his own too now. I think like obviously he's 3-0, I believe. Logan Thompson's there too, I believe, as their backup goalie right now. They're looking very strong as well. I'd love to see the Oilers win it, but I feel like it's going to come down to a 1-2-3 race between Vegas, the Oilers, and the Kings. I think Vegas is going to hold off and win that division in the Pacific.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, let's wrap it up. Play a little bit of fun game. Sticking with picks. So we talked about division winners. Again, real early on, that can all change. I want to look at trophy winners. So let's look at trophy winners here now. And I'm going to go off and kind of give you just a front five, similar to what we had in our bold predictions. And I'll name them off. And I just want you to give, kind of like a name, give a little brief discussion. If you want to kind of, show why or tell why or prove why, so to speak, you go ahead. But let's go through, hammer these out real quick. Who are your award-winning trophy winners? Okay, so first and foremost, who do you have early on winning the Hart?
I got Jack Hughes. Might be a little off the board. I mean, I think a lot of people will take McDavid. I just want to be a little different, so I took Jack Hughes. Hot start, 6 points, 3 games. Kind of connecting to what my division picks. I think the Devils are going to be a strong team this year. Whether or not they win the cup this year, I think they'll still have a deep run in the playoffs. I would call the season successful. I think they're going to make conference finals. And I just think Jack Hughes can be a big part of it. I think he's really took a big step in his game this year. He just makes everything look so easy out there. I was able to catch a couple games early on, and just the way he sees the ice and his IQ is just getting, higher and higher each year. Obviously, he's got a lot of talent around him, but I think he's going to be a big piece to take him to the Holy Land. So, Jack Hughes, MVP.
Like that. I'm going to go through yours as a whole. I'll kind of give you all
Okay.
5 and continue on. So who you got for Rocket?
I got Matthews. I've said this even before he started. He's healthy. Like you said, he had the wrist injury last year. When he scored 60, it took him 12 games to get the 6 goals, and now it's taken him 2 games to get the 6 goals. Yes, it was back-to-back hat tricks. Stick is hot right now. Didn't score last game. I'm sure all Leaf fans are all crying in their beds, but I just think Matthews is going to go on a tear. I had him at 60-plus goals even before the season started. And he's just finding his dynamic on the power play, finding the right areas, getting in low, scoring big goals against Montreal. He scored with not much time left on the clock. He's just a big factor out there. If he can use his body to get into certain positions, why can't he score 60 again? I just wouldn't be surprised one bit.
I feel like an idiot saying this because I came on early saying that he wouldn't score 50. I think he still only gets to like 51, 52.
Really?
Yeah,
We'll see.
it's so hard to score in this league. I know the production as a whole is
Yeah.
well, but what a lot of people understand is like he's going to be against the top defenseman that there possibly is. He's going to be playing the hardest competition day in, day out. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes on like a 6-7 game goalless streak, and he might still be getting 3-4 shots a game, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised. I also wouldn't be surprised if he hit 60. He's looked strong to start. Already at 6 goals. I mean, he only needs 54 more, right?
Yeah.
Art Ross, who do you got?
I could go McDavid. I know I've probably had a slow start for him at 5.3 games, but you just can't. It's crazy how that's a slow start, but I just think you can't count him out. 153 points last year. I don't really need to go into detail what this guy can bring to the team and what he can do on the ice in both sides. I just got McDavid, Art Ross. I think it's a simple pick.
Don't need to say much further, my guy. I completely understand what you're getting at. We've all seen it. Norris?
The Norris. Another kind of, I wouldn't say obvious, but I'm going to go Cale Makar. He's got a high-powered team with Colorado. Not much missing weapons on that team other than Landeskog. But another strong team, like you said, in your division pick. I just think he can't go wrong. He just passed for the first to 250 points. He beat Bobby Orr, so he's the fastest to get there.
Yeah, heard of him?
I heard of him. No kidding. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory there. So Cale Makar, Norris Trophy. Whether he wins it, he's definitely a finalist.
Love it. And last one here, I'll stick you with the Vezina.
Vezina's a good. This is an interesting one, actually. I still think I'm gonna go with Jake Ottinger from Dallas. I think he's still really young. He's proven a lot in the playoffs. He had a good run. I don't know if it was 2 years ago, or maybe it was last year. I can't remember, but he had a pretty good run there. It just shows you he can play, big games and big moments. And he's got a pretty good team in front of him too. So, you've seen him in the years prior. He's able to bail out a team, and that's the biggest thing you can learn as a Tampa Bay fan. Andre Vasilevsky. There's so many games where they can bail a team out, get you a win, and that's how you're going to win the Vezina. Ilya Sorokin's a prime example. 6 shutouts last year. I believe he was a finalist. He was on a mediocre, maybe bad Islanders team, and he can still put up good numbers. So being able to bail out your team is going to get you a vote for the Vezina.
Yeah, 100%. Ottinger's 2 games in. He's only allowed 3 goals against. He's got a 1.38 goals against and a 948 save percentage.
I like it.
Those numbers are elite. Elite. I love that. Yep. Really good choices, dude, all around. I'll kind of fire off my picks here real quick. So for the Hart, I know it's early on and the points aren't necessarily sexy and numbers aren't there, but Nathan McKinnon. Yeah. It's incredible how good this dude is and how much he makes that Colorado Avalanche team better. He is just absolutely all over the ice. So he's got 1 goal, 2 assists in 3 games. That came in the first game. He's been held pointless in the last 2. He has 21 shots on net in 3 games already.
Jeez.
He had 14 shots on net against the Sharks and was held pointless.
14 shots.
And was held pointless.
What?
Just goes to show his metrics on the ice, his numbers, Corsi. You look at all the analytics. He's an analytics darling. He also has 3 shot blocks and 4 blocks. 3 hits and 4 blocks through 3 games as well. Right? So even if you average a hit a game as your number 1 player, that shows that you're willing to bang the body. But 4 blocks in 3 games kind of stood out to me as well. Just to say, like, I want to win, right? He's one of those guys that takes after some of the best. He wants to win. But 21 shots in 3 games, 1 goal. This guy's going to go off, and he's going to go off quick. My Rocket, lean no further. 29 in Edmonton, Leon Draisaitl. Guy's got 4 goals, 3 assists in 7 games already. He's already got 3 power play goals. He just broke the record, for franchise playoff goals in Edmonton Oilers history, and he's been in the team for all of 8 years. That guy might double the amount of power play goals that he scores, not to mention his first 3 years, he really wasn't the Leon Draisaitl that we know. 4 goals already in 3 games, 14 shots on net. He's got a 28.6 shooting percentage. I ain't expecting a 28.6 shooting percentage to hold up, but that's just elite. That means he's scoring those chances. He doesn't miss many of those shots. If you look at his montage highlight reel of just disgusting snipes that he scores, he finds a way to put that puck into places that most players could never friggin' dream of. And the way that he rips that beaver paddle of a friggin' stick blade onto any shot, he doesn't miss that puck. He rips it so damn hard on any one-timer. That's why I said earlier in the podcast that McDavid doesn't make Draisaitl better. Draisaitl makes McDavid better. I think thoroughly. He's averaging 5 minutes on power play time on ice a game too. So basically saying whenever we get a power play, 29 and 97, you're out there the whole time. My Art Ross, sticking in Edmonton. I'm going 97 as well. I really do believe he's got 2 and 3. He's got 5 points in 3 games, which you said, slow start. But I really do. I mean, I watch a lot of their games. I see just about all the shifts. He could probably already have 10 points just looking at it. And he hasn't really played that great, to be honest with you. He hasn't necessarily had those flashes, those big scoring chances and everything. He finally had one the other night where he kind of had a highlight reel goal thanks to the D-man just completely whiffing on the puck for some reason. But they've had to shuffle their lines a little bit in the first couple of games to try and figure out what works. He already has 12 shots in 4 games as well. Or 3 games as well too. So 4 shots a game. He's getting his chances, putting it up. I think you'll start to see those 3-4 point nights, and he'll probably have a stretch of 12, 13 points in 5 games coming here very soon, right? You know he
Yep.
will. Norris, I'm going Makar as well
Yeah.
with you. 2 goals, 2 assists, 24 minutes of time on ice, and he's already a +6 through 3 games, right?
Yeah.
Just the
Solid.
driver of the like he is better than most forwards in this league, and
Better
he's
than
playing
most.
defenseman. What's that?
Better than most.
Better
You're
than most. Better than most. Um, he's so disgusting moving the puck, but like the way he skates around it, like he just looks like he
Yeah.
floats. He doesn't even look like he skates, and he's just casually making disgusting moves, moving side to side, his agility, just snapping the puck around. Every one of his passes is tape to tape. That's one thing I
Yeah.
appreciate about him. He gets to the puck quick, he gets open space quick, but breakouts, snapping it tape to tape, moving the power play, moving the puck on the power play, tape to tape, never in the skates, never, behind the puck, like, or behind the player. It's fun to watch. It really is.
Yeah.
And Vesna, I hate to say it, I'm sticking in Avalanche again. I feel like I'm just a Colorado fan. I'm going Gorgiev. He
Oh
is
wow.
already sorry.
Wow. I
Yeah,
thought
I
it.
know, I know. I hate to say it. He's already 3-0. Gorgiev is. He's got a 1.3 goals against and a 958 save percentage.
Yeah,
That's
that's good.
winning games. He's keeping them in, yeah, it's not bad, right? Keeping them in games.
Average.
He's winning them games, not allowing many goals against. He's making the saves when it counts. When you got a team like that, when you can make the save when it counts, knowing your team has got the capability of scoring 5-6 goals a game, you're going to
Yeah.
win a lot of games by 2-3 goals and just dominate the season. I think if they can all stay healthy, I really think we're going to see Colorado, push for presidents this year. I don't think any of us don't see and forecast Colorado being in the top 5 this year. If they can get McKinnon and Makar doing what they do, along with Rantanen, one of the most underrated players in the league,
Oh
arguably,
my god. Yeah.
now they can add above mediocre goaltending, is what we've always said. If they can just get a real solid to medium goaltender, well, Gorgiev's playing like he's a number 1 now for the first 3 games, albeit. Um, look out, for them, right?
Yeah.
Anything
Absolutely.
you want to add on those trophy winners there?
No, it's good choices. There's obviously a lot of options to put on the table. Maybe not for like Art Ross or like the Hart, but there's just a lot of options. Like we said, there's so much skill in today's league. Anyone could just pop off and then could surprise us as well. But maybe put a little parlay award winner together just because of my gambling addiction.
I might have to. I'm gonna hit you with one that we didn't briefly chat about though. Just a
Yeah.
quick fire off this one here. How many 100-point players are going to be in the league this year?
I've got 10.
You going 10? I'm not going to
I
sit
got
here and have
10.
you name it. I'm going to
No.
say there's going to be 7. I'm going to say
Yeah.
there's going to be 7. I was kind of thinking about it earlier. I think a few of the same guys that we saw last year. I think that Jack Hughes finds his way into that 100-point club. I think Matthews finds his way back into that 100-point club this year as well. I think there are a few guys. I don't have Robertson in 100 points this year, but I do have a few other guys in there. So you're going 10. I'm going 7.
Yeah.
Let us know, how many players do you think you're going to hit? Let me ask. I'll even put this one out there. How many 100-point players do you think there's going to be in the league this year? And how many players are going to top 50 goals? I'll let you go on that one. How many players are going to top 50 goals this year?
I got 5.
You got 5? I think when I
Yeah.
originally spoke with you earlier before the season, I think I put 5 on there as well. So I'm
Okay.
gonna go with based on the scoring, I'm gonna go 6, just because we don't want to
Woo!
have the same answer. I think there's gonna be 6 50-goal scorers this season. I think with scoring being up, I think we're gonna see quite a bit of production this year. Anything else you want to add on that one there? Division winners, candidate winners, trophy winners, anything like that?
No, I'm good. I'm just excited to see how it all unfolds. Yeah, that's it.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. Let's wrap it up there. I know we're
Yeah.
early in. Let's get a little bit more of a week or so into that. Kind of wrap it up. See where we're sitting in a week or so with where we just talked about, where we are with players, divisions, teams, etc. We are too, for everyone listening, trying to get our hands on a really unique interview. A couple, actually. I think one that I think a lot of people will be interested in, based on a really up and coming hobby. Something that I think a lot of people can find that it's a fun little niche, but it's a great way to make money out of too. So that's a little
Yep.
sprinkle. And another really cool interview, if we can get it lined up, I think a lot of people would be very interested in hearing. It would be a
Yep.
very neat take. It would be a very cool take.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'd be one of our biggest interviews yet. So a
Yeah.
lot of good
Stay
excitement
tuned.
coming our way. Puts a tickle down our spine here. So I'm hoping that we can get a couple good things in the future lined up for you guys. Thank you guys very much for listening too. Again, please check out the social medias at North Six Sports, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter as well, Facebook if you follow us on that one. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have anything that we want to talk about, that you want us to talk about, that you want to hear, any ideas at all. Again, another edition of the Soft Dump in the Corner presented to you by North Six Sports. Until next time.
Thank you.